Summoners have long since been known to solo or clear hard stages with few operators. One of the most popular and widely known clears is 410, which most of you should be familiar with. This was many of our first introductions to low-op clears, long before the days of Just Sutter or Taunts, soloing a boss stage, and it was with a character that not many people knew how to use. I know of people who put Max on her original banner and they still haven't raised her after 2.5 years. Ironically, the 410 clear was part of the reason why. While it helped sell the idea of big brain equals big rewards with summoners, it also deterred many from trying them due to the supposed high bar of entry. And it was true for a very long time. Summoners did some insane things, but they never felt broken, the clears never felt undeserving. H6-4 with Mia and Magellan Duo is probably one of the best clears in existence, with just how much thought and micromanagement was put into it. Even Scene, who's widely considered to be the easiest summoner to pick up, still didn't really change up the game's landscape unless your name is Kokok Belloc and you get yelled at to optimize clears with her every single event. Here's a video showcasing the most used operators in every separate event's records. As expected, summoners dominated for a long time, but ops like Taunts and Surtur still show up from time to time. Wait. What? No, it can't be! The Blue Woman alarm! Ling, the limited 6-star summoner, the most broken operator in the game. In a matter of days, she racked up hundreds of records. Today, that number sits at 3031, and it's still rising. I'm going to be explaining why I feel this way, why it matters, and sprinkling in arguments against those points, and then beating them to the ground along the way. I had a good long talk with my Twitch chat months ago to understand both sides of the argument. This is going to kinda be a Ling guide, a Ling was it worth, but it's just a side effect of trying to shit on her. Let's get started. To begin, we need to discuss her kit. She summons big-ass dragons that deal multi-target fist damage, which can then be turned into higher forms which block 4 and they deal mega arts damage. The catch is of course that they cost 18 DP each with module, 23 without, and have 20 seconds to redeploy. Now, you can look at this in two ways. Either, the fuck, that's really long, it's such a huge detriment. Or, if you know her stats, fast redeploy mud rocks? That's right. Ling's summons have similar stats to one of the biggest statistics in the game. Ling's summons have quite a bit going on with them. They block 2 enemies instead of 1, unlike other cringe summoners, and they attack enemies equal to block count like Centaurians, and you get 8 of them, and you get even more when you turn on skill. And that's all before talking about high form, which essentially doubles all of her insane stats. If you've ever seen Mud Rock, aka the lower form, tank any elite enemy, you can probably start to understand why this is a problem. But that wasn't enough for HG. Module gives her 3 extra Mud Rocks to summon, reduces their cost by 5, gives her an additional big dragon deploy limit, and why not add 60 whole levels worth of attack and HP? I know this is a lot to process, but it's not my fault. HG just decided her already bloated kit needed like 50 more buffs. With stats this insane and a total block count of up to 14, she can deal with stages without even using her skill. As an experiment, E tried using her on 716 where he cleared it on his first attempt. And then, he decided to do it again without using her skill. 5 steps, plop down 2 dragons, and you win. So, her skills have to be balanced if the base dragons are really strong, right? Okay, so what if we doubled their already insane attack and defense for 30 seconds? That seems pretty fair, right? Also, give her an extra summon when the skill ends. Also, add a 500 arts DPS fart for a good measure. Sounds good? Splendid. This skill is cracked, to say the least. Each dragon has around 1.6k DPS, which is just good. But of course, you can summon multiple. With every single dragon and Ling herself focused on one target, she gets up to 7.6k DPS. For comparison, Surtur, a bad operator, has 3.7k DPS. This will never be used however because you don't need to. You can instead deal with multiple lanes, wasting some summons, and then shredding with at most 2 dragons if need be. Or do both at once in the case of 1017. Even one dragon has enough firepower to clap elite enemies. Elites usually have 10 to 20,000 HP, some boasting 1000 defense and 70 res, which is not enough for both higher and lower forms to care. Okay, well, they'll need a significant amount of the skill duration, but the point is that they are still able to, while still having cracked-ass defense to tank anything. And all this comes at a 40-second cooldown. Quite a few operators have the same skill cycle, but normal ops are actually reliant on their skills to do much. That's not the case for Ling. She isn't bound by her skill, unlike Mountain or Bagpipe with the same SP cost. Lower Form can already hold its own with its disgusting stats. It will eventually die from chip damage, but Ling can escape even death. You place another dragon down and they create a fully refreshed higher form. And this is why I find the DP cost argument pretty ridiculous. If you didn't summon Mud Rocks for half the cost of the actual unit, I would agree. With 28 to 35 DP initial cost, depending on pots and module, you get a formidable lane holder. Considering that, that's a pretty silly argument when ops with almost the exact same DP range like Mudrock and Cow already exist. And they have proven time and time again that you can open with them on most stages. On top of that, a majority of players do not play with low op. Vanguards exist. So you place them down, and once you get enough DP for that first summon, I think I've adequately explained why you're set for 99% of stages. It's not an insane cost for being able to do so much. There are exceptions. Rush stages like 7-4, 7-9 and R8-5 are stages that S3 cannot deal with, and they're tough to set up even with a Vanguard. However, these stages are so few and far between that I don't think it hurts the point. Especially considering that they are tough even for normal teams that don't cost a kidney, with 7-9 especially having players usually resort to the cheapest carries of Mountain or Bagpipe. The upcoming GA8 is also another example. It has a pretty fast start that S3 couldn't handle without a castle tree to block first. Every day, people toiled away at the stage, trying to look for something that could relieve them of their plight. Eventually, someone did find something. A game-changing discovery, in fact. She had other skills. That's right. Contrary to popular belief, she has two other perfectly functional skills. These two are normal summoner skills, which means that they cost less while having lower stats. Still able to solo a fair amount of stages, or just do a significant amount in depth. Skill 1 is basically Scene but with more stats for a little more DP and it does arts instead. Just like Scene, S1 is pretty strong with the replenishable blocks and a skill that packs a fair punch. Nothing too crazy, but it still solved the solos for the aforementioned 7-9. Skill 2 is actually pretty cracked, especially with module upgrades. The summons themselves are pretty lackluster, basically weaker core casters, but the skill effects are what make it really strong. Targets 2 enemies for up to 11k arts damage with all dragons. It binds, and it even has control over the summons by absorbing the summons at the half health. All that for 13 SP. I never mention her talent since it really doesn't matter for S3, but she gets SP every time her summons get killed or they get absorbed. Basically, it's spammable burst, and if you happen to have constant damage on the summons, you get to spam it harder. It also happens to be the only solution to 7-18 solo. One of the best records in AK history and also one of my personal favorites, just for the fact that it actually uses the fart altar and the boss farts to its advantage. Also, for some reason, it shoots through freeze, so it has even more records on chapter 6. But that's enough of actual balance and fun. Let's go to a topic that will most certainly require S3's involvement. Records. Let's take a look at ArcRec. This is a page dedicated to archiving minimal operator clears of each stage, hence Arknights record. It records different niches such as using only specific classes or 4-star only. As mentioned before, she's amassed a shit ton of records, a huge amount of which are solos. Now, I know what you guys are already thinking, because I've spent way too long arguing with people online over a blue thing in a goddamn mobile game. She's a summoner. Obviously, she's going to be good at solos. And because of that, she's not broken, since summoners are built for this, right? Not quite. While summoners obviously solo stages a lot more than other operators by virtue of holding multiple lanes, they can't solo most harder chapters past chapter 4. There's a few reasons for this. Deep Color doesn't have enough firepower to kill. Scene has the same issue, albeit to a lesser extent. Mia and Magellan both have really good bursts, but they fall short in auto attacks, and their skills remove all fielded summons, which can leave you very vulnerable to leaks. Summoners work extremely well at dealing with peons and simply supporting, but they're usually paired with each other or other heavy hitters to clear stages low up. Let's take a look at Magellan for example. 6-star summoner just like Ling, and here's the list of stages you can solo in the main story. This is a lot of stages of course, but notice how the further you go, the less she solos. Early chapters are piss easy, with so-called elite enemies that could be considered threats if you were a newborn child. And this is true with the rest of the summoners as well. They are really good at handling multiple lanes and enemies, but they just can't deal with everything all by themselves. Now, here's Ling soloing H73 with barely as much as skill usage. As of 21st May 2022, she has accumulated 394 solos across the entire game, 3 months ago. To put that into perspective, chapters 0 to 8, including H stages, is only 165 stages. This number was given to me by an admin for Arknights, which means there's potentially records that haven't been submitted to for stages that are simply too trivial in early chapters. Like, would you ever try Ling solo on 2-1 even though you know for sure it's possible? Probably not, right? Right? You're not that desperate for a record, right? Anyways, I could ask for an updated number because it has definitely gone up in these 3 months after module upgrades, but I don't know if I want to see the number. I tried asking for just Ling's solo stats in main story to compare with Max, but unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. Nevertheless, we can get a pretty clear comparison just by looking at individual stages in chapters 6 to 8. Maglan is unable to solo all but 7 stages in those chapters, one of which is a box stage that literally requires 0 operators to beat. Ling on the other hand has racked up solos on notable stages like the aforementioned H73, 718 and others like 611, 616, 716 and I11. She was dominating low ops so hard that Arknights had to create a whole fucking Lingless category. Even within summoners, Ling is an entirely different beast. These stages are some of the hardest in the main story and she's clearing them with ease. And as we speak, people are still clearing the final few stages with module upgrades or the other skills. You place down your dragons, clap everything, if strong enough enemies appear, you activate skill and you clap them too. 919, 1017, MBEX 8cm, MNEX 8cm, a shit ton of H stages, S3 gets to solo pretty much every single stage without drones. The few left that she can't solo are bosses that have some way to kill Ling herself, such as Mephisto's Poison, Kalula's Burn, and Global Explosions from the new Dorothy's Vision boss. But it's not like she can't do anything just because she can't solo though. At the start, the usual solution was to add a Sorter to kill the boss, but nowadays people are opting to use Scalter S1 or 2 to heal her instead. After all, she has the damage! M8, JT83, DVEX8, H83, all of these got a Scalter dual treatment. Drone stages are but with S2, she can usually handle those two. Or in case like JT82, she just needs a Silver Ash to deal with the drone. Now, there's a special stage I need to talk about. H74. It's one of the hardest stages in Arknights. Supposedly. Hatred, the single biggest stat stick in the game. Paired with a myriad of tough enemies and an unforgiving rush at the start that leaves you with 28 DB before the first dog leaks. And now let's look at Ling's cost with one dragon with module. Yeah, she gets to start the man. We started with Subtle Ling Duo when she was released. Optimized to no module. Module upgrades gave us Ling and Gnosis, Ling Promenix, and now the latest is Ling Shamare. As it got more and more optimized, it became more and more clear that the one single thing holding her back from soloing this stage was Patriot himself. As long as you have an operator to help with him and bait the spear attack, you win. I keep seeing people say that she's not Surtur or Chorter level broken, but she clearly has the DPS to carry an entire fucking H stage. It's not something either of them can do. Her sets are very obviously ridiculous compared to the rest of the cast, and she can most certainly be used as easily as them. There's absolutely nothing hard about placing down fast redeploy mud rocks. Another point I see floating around is how she's supposedly not good in CC. To which I say, I have never felt that CC is a good judge of an operator. Not by itself anyways. There are two big problems with this. One is more obvious. Risks such as stat buffs and debuffs hurt some operators more than others. Blaze is a great example. You never ever see her in high risk gameplay because her kit simply isn't built for that. It relies too much on stats that are able to kill peons but are only barely able to kill elite enemies. And that simply isn't gonna cut it at max risk. The second problem is that stages are so specific that operators with unique niches get to max risk solely based on their ability to shit on a specific threat. You have ops like Hung with the lowest DPS in the game. I'm not joking, I'm not even trying to shit on him. He straight up has the lowest DPS in the game and paired with Lamshine. We have Skyfire and Mosima having the perfect attack intervals and cycles to stun lock one pop in CC4. I wish I'd known this before I started clicking on Vibing for 10 hours. You get the idea. Oftentimes people simply throw out the risks hit by operators to justify their strength, but they don't bother thinking about what made them good there. You see Chen in R31 bursting down specific threats because that's what CC5 requires. But that doesn't mean she's on the same level as Surtur or Exu who appear at the same risk level. You'll never see taunts at max because CC favors redeploying and more focused burst damage, but that doesn't stop him from shredding any other stage in the game. And that is another reason why CC is unreliable as a source. It's so easy to forget that CC is simply one single stage in a pool of hundreds. I understand that it's hard to analyze kits without being a nerd, and CC is usually the thing that, a lot of people know about. But I do hope that more people can stray away from the tunnel vision that is high risk equals good. Wait. I've just received word that Ling achieved max risk week 1 in Dawnseeker with 7 ops. I'm sorry, but I don't think there's any way to tell me that she isn't broken now. High risk equals good, right? Right. Jokes aside, we can analyze this further. Shorter is pretty much the only DPS needed, so all the clear needs is bodies to soak archer hits. Big hits, big defense, big HP, Unga Bunga, Ling in squad. Her stats are so cracked that they can bypass even CC's usual stat checks. And there's more than just that. If you are willing to learn her, which you really don't need to if you are planning to bring her to operators, she has even more gimmicks up her sleeve. The direction you face her summons can be a subtle but important way of using them. For example, the H74 Modulus duo uses a dragon in the middle facing down to help out without blocking the path for Surtur to still be able to attack. Once that's done, another dragon gets placed where the first one was facing to turn it into a block for that lane. That is depth that you can draw from her. It's not like she's 100% brain dead. That is depth that you can draw from her if you're trying hard enough. So yeah, on top of already being strong, there's also the usual high skill cap with summoners. It's not hard to see why she breaks the game. She does so much. Too much. I'm all out of nerd stats that I can provide, but we still have points that we need to address. From here on out, this will be more opinion based. You can't use a full squad with her, but at the same time, you don't need a full squad. While a full squad of 6 stars will surely offer more variety, it's probably easier to just drop dragons and win anyways. You don't need to use your brain to even abuse her. You lose a lot of deploy slots with her, but she covers every role with ease. DPS, tanking, lane holding, and even a built-in healing system. Why is it a problem if you can't use other operators? But I know the point that they're getting at. Or at least, an underlying reason why they think like that. And I fully agree. It's not fun to play like that. She's not a fun character. You set her down and you watch her kill things by... what? Being a stat stick? There's nothing rewarding about a kid. With other 6 stars, you gotta do fun stuff, fun effects. It's rarely purely about the numbers, and rather the whole package. Rock has shields, a funny spin, and an S3 that's just fun to look at, on top of all the utility and DPS that it brings. Unectus, despite being the biggest stat stick in the game, makes you think about how to charge her and when exactly to use that precious skill. Even Surtur, the previous most broken operator, has a time limit to shred everything. Ling doesn't really have any of that. She brings this game down to its simplest form and arguably most boring. You tank and you deal damage until the enemy dies. And it's exemplified by how she does it without much thought of the usual positioning and skill timings that other operators need. But even so, why is there a problem? Doesn't matter if a character is boring, is it? Why don't you just not use her? Part of it is the worry of them balancing gameplay around her. It's not like we haven't seen it before. We can't confirm it, but CC4 including redeploy and enemy rest increase stacks for the first time ever seem to be a direct response to Surtur. As was Chapter 9's Refraction giving plus 70 rest to every single enemy, or even Emperor's Blade's forced retreat to bypass the invincibility. In CC8, we actually got a direct response to Ling, a DP increase stack specifically for summons and devices. In the former 2 cases, arts from any source was cut, which meant that casters that weren't the top of the line ones were immediately rendered useless. Even Chapter 7 wasn't as harsh on physical, with peons that still at least took damage from operators with lower attack. If it really was because of one single operator's strength, that's really worrying. But this isn't the main reason. Not for me anyways. Honestly, more than anything, more than wanting to correct misinfo, more than the balance issues, more than all these things that I've mentioned throughout the video, the real reason that I wanted to make it was fatigue. Every time a new event drops, it's an exciting time to scroll through Bilibili and look at all the new players. Or at least, it was, used to be. Now what you get is a full page of Ling solos, everybody scrambling to be the first to get an arbitrary record we already know she can get. We no longer have varied solutions that involve a myriad of skills, not even a tight Surtur skill. It's just Ling. What makes AK so fun for me is how interesting the gameplay is. There are infinite solutions even when you get down to the insanely optimized gameplay. While high level clears are done for fun, the community aspect is also part of that fun. Seeing people do cool things motivates others into trying to beat them, or to do something similarly fun with their own solutions. It's a magical feeling in the community that I keep myself most active in. But now, once a stage is solved with Ling, it's going to see less and less attention outside of specific niches like Class Knights. Stages are reduced to the most boring playstyle and videos possible. I can easily avoid using her, as I already have been on CN. What I cannot avoid is things that she affects. I consume AK content daily. I interact with the community. My experience in AK is not a vacuum. She has already affected the content that I love so dearly. And while I'm aware that this is a personal issue, I don't think it'll just be me when she comes to global. Guts and trust funds will be filled with Ling, or at least the most popular ones since she's the most optimized solution. Of course, the top guide makers like Kyo, Echo and Cookie will still likely try to use other ops, but we've seen what Shorter has done to guides. We see how many people are begging for no Shorter runs. She is the best solution, so I don't blame guide makers at all, but just like her, Ling will affect the community in an invisible way. And that's why I feel so strongly. So, what's the takeaway from this video? Take it as a guide, a rant, a roast. My hope is definitely for you guys to come to understand how blatantly broken she is. And if you enjoyed it, share it around if you see anyone wondering why Ling is broken. Ultimately, this game is yours to play. I have no rights to judge who you build, and despite my grievances with her kid, she's still a sick character. Play who you like, unless you are in Young Man Dragons, in which case I am personally kicking any Ling users. Goodbye, Ringo Juice, and thanks for watching.